All right, it's Waldorf and Statler back this time.
So I have to look at Melanie Griffith. So my kid showing part of her.
Oh, that's distracting, isn't it? Almost said disturbing.
Can't remember if she takes her bra off or not. It's when she was young and everything was in the right place.
All right.
I'm partial to blondes. What can I say?
On to the close combat phase.
Blonde women. I just want to be clear on that.
Okay. I wasn't making a distinction.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close combat. What do we have?
Section 12.
Section 12, right?
Of the rules. Yep.
We start with a quick breakdown of how the phases run through. Engaged in combat, no longer engaged. The first change we really see is here, dropping out of combat. You can do, they have two distinctions now. There's the post-combat pivot or the post-combat reform. There's a difference to the way they do it. Of course, the pivot, you just pivot about, pick it up from the table, put it back down with your center the same, not changing your formation.
Right.
Whereas the reform is where you can
change ranks.
Not only change your facing, you can change your ranks and files and
right.
Kind of move that stuff around.
And they have a good clarification here regarding magical moves that you can't do it if you.
Opposing units were removed, such with a magical move. Correct.
Right.
Yeah, which is good. Moving on down, we have the round of combat.
And a very detailed sequence, so there's no question about the order.
I've actually referred to this chart a couple times.
Yeah,
in the last few games.
You know how many times that you think, oh, that was before that. Absolutely.
It's nice to see whether you make way or issue challenges first.
Yep.
Again, very detailed. I like this a lot.
And yeah, because it had a huge impact on how chariots work.
Correct.
And
even step 7. The nearby units roll the panic check before you determine whether you're going to pursue or not.
Often, yeah, how many times you run away and go, oh, how many units were within 6 inches? Right. Where was he again?
Correct.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, not only that, but I mean, it lets you as the winning side see what happens around you to know whether you need to stay or you're free to pursue.
Exactly.
So I like it, again. I like a lot of these things. The clarification is what I like a lot. And then it talks about here where everyone fights in initiative. Impact hits go at initiative 10, which is what you were just referring to.
Yep.
Where now, since it's initiative 10, you've already declared your challenges. You're already in a challenge. So therefore, your impact hits go into the challenge.
Yep. We'll be that character that just got hit by that chariot.
Yeah, that one character steps up and eats the chariot.
Yep.
Which is, usually your champion in this case, but
yes.
I guess it can be the chariot.
But it also means if you happen to have initiative 10, you're striking at the same time as a chariot. So a chariot doesn't automatically always go first.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Who can strike? You still go in initiative order.
Right.
Supporting attacks, same as it was before. Horde formation gives you the extra rank. Incomplete ranks fight over the gap.
I think it's clear because your incomplete rank is always centered. Because you see people always like putting the incomplete rank on one side or the other. There's no more of that. And because it's very clear that you're going to fight over the gap anyway.
Right. So it really doesn't matter as much as...
And there's a nice diagram here, and it shows a large base character attached and how, even the partial ranks are extending over.
Yeah, and they even show the little dotted lines where the guys extend to.
Right.
Which I like. Again, I think they've done a good job with this.
Absolutely.
Another good diagram. Allocating attacks, you pick who you're going to swing at and you swing. The two differences here, not really differences. The first one is the things with a different wound pool have to be targeted like a champion.
Right.
That's been the case always. It's just made a little bit more clear here.
Correct.
The big change here is this Swirling Melee option now, which any rank and file model, no matter who he's touching, can fight at the rank and file of the enemy.
So this ended character walls.
Correct. This is the anti-character wall.
Yes.
This killed them all. This hurt the Kingdom of Aquitaine quite a bit.
My lances are very sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it made sense.
Yeah, of course it makes sense. There's the few armies that could do it was, from a mechanics is,
yeah, the ogres and the Bretonnians had that.
It's a broken thing. I mean,
right.
From a mechanics perspective.
Correct. And the one thing to keep in mind with this swirling rule is that this does not apply to characters.
Right.
Characters can still only hit who they're touching.
They're in contact with.
So they are not allowed to project their attacks into the rank and file. A lot of people will mistake that and say, you can always hit rank and file.
Yep.
No, not with your characters.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of assumed that the characters just line up and the other guys walk around.
Right.
So,
correct.
Rolling the hit is basically as it was before. So they've got two things on here. They're basically, if you're higher, 3. If you're lower, if you're equal or slightly lower, it's a 4, and if you're twice more, it's a 5, which is exactly the same thing. I think they actually put this in later, the old to hit table.
Correct.
So for people that like to see it in a graphical form, but it's basically saying the same thing in 2 different ways.
Correct, and it's a simple.
It's the same as it was before.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Nothing changed.
Yet.
Another example. Right.
Yeah.
This
That's actually
champion.
Even though we haven't gotten the challenges yet,
Oh.
it talks a little bit about them and how they're fighting a challenge and who fights who and
right.
who can strike who. This is just an example of that. So here you have the different command figures and you have characters and who can hit and who can't hit.
Yeah. Again, diagrams have been great.
Mm-hmm.
Dropping out of combat, you kind of nudge units to keep them in combat.
Yeah, this is it's all black, but in actuality, it's a much clearer description when you nudge and when you don't nudge.
Right. And again, I think this is always the reason it's not blue is because it's kind of always been there.
It just wasn't understood at the time.
It's not understood, and it was always kind of, I don't know. GW had that annoying thing of suggesting.
Right.
We suggest this is the way you handle it.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't really work in a competitive game.
Right.
Winning.
And I don't think they were really good in talking about when units had to drop out.
Correct.
So, this is clear
on. Winning around the combat. A couple of these modifiers have changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them fairly significant. Inflicted wounds is what it's always been. Number of wounds.
Each wound gives you a +1.
Overkill is +1 for each wound that you cause to a maximum of 3 more than what the guy had.
In a challenge.
Yes.
Now,
the other big thing here is, I don't know where it's clarified here, so it's clarified somewhere else. In a challenge, you get all your attacks.
Correct. No matter what initiative
so
they are.
If your Bloodthirster kills him with his normal attacks, he still gets to stomp him.
Exactly. It's under
Thunderstomp him.
Yeah. It might be stomp. I have to remember the...
But it's been narrowed down to 3.
Right. It's no longer that you only kill him up to the number of... Yes, which makes it very interesting.
Right. So,
and then the number is now only +3, so...
Right. Charging, they added a +2, which was there before. It's just in a different spot, because it's if you charge down a hill.
Right.
You get the second one.
Yeah, they basically did away with the hill value and incorporated into that. Not sure that was necessary, but
right.
It does the same thing, yeah. Rank bonus is basically the same as it was before. Having a standard, having a battle standard, basically was it before, +1, and the bonuses for flank and rear are different now.
Yeah, they pretty much, they're the same as what they were unless you have a rank. Right,
exactly. So now you get that extra bonus. So you get the +1 and if you have a rank. And this is important, and we'll get into that when we talk about attributes, because skirmishers and flyers and fast cab type troops, whatever,
have 0
free
ranks.
reform have 0 ranks.
Correct.
No matter how big they are. So they're never going to get the additional plus. They're always going to be at the baseline.
And this is 1 or more full ranks. It's not an additional rank.
Correct.
So a giant, which is
a single rank,
which has a single rank in your flank, gets +2 combat.
Right.
This is another one that's kind of missed a lot.
Yes.
is the people hitting something in the flank with a single rank and not giving that
Right,
second
and
bonus.
not realizing that certain things actually have a rank bonus.
Correct. So another change. I like this. It makes flank and rear a little more important.
I think this is all fine, and and it makes the combat units more effective, and ensures that the lighter units, while still can do something, they're not as effective.
Correct. And then the summary of all those rules broke down into a little chart.
Into a chart.
Right. What do we have? Break tests?
Yep.
Break tests. Again, roll 2 dice, compare your leadership and player your modifier. Pretty much what it was. Steadfast. If you have more ranks than each of your enemy units,
correct,
you ignore leadership modifiers when you're rolling your break test.
So you're basically stubborn.
As it's always been with Steadfast.
And this is the same as it was in 8th. I hear a lot of people bemoaning, Steadfast is such a bad thing because certain things can happen. But it does ensure that you don't have the auto wins like you used to have before version 8.
Correct.
And I think they made some other subtle changes which we'll get to that makes it not quite as ridiculous as it used to be. So I think it's a good mechanic.
Right.
Otherwise, most of your core infantry, would just lose all the time and run away.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happened back in the earlier days is, 6th edition and beyond before that.
Charge in, kill the front rank, and boom, they ran away.
So your little unit of 5 elite guys can crush a huge unit.
Right.
Anyway, that's pretty much gone now.
Mm-hmm. Disrupted is different, and I think also in a good way. It's no longer, you don't get rid of ranks, and I think people missed this one too.
Yes.
I think it may have been in the earlier editions that it was ranks. But now you can't use a steadfast rule, so you can disrupt steadfast.
Correct.
And that is a big deal. So now when your Death Stars have to be a little more concerned. Even your big buses, if they get on the flank, you get your rank bonus, but
you're not steadfast.
You're not steadfast, so
right.
If they
you start applying modifiers, and
bad things start happening. So it does. Hopefully that'll help. I mean, there's still some challenges in a number of the army books, but move away from the Death Star, one Death Star and a couple units in an army list, and crushing everybody, because now there's just not that much. There are very few stubborn units. There's a few that have the bodyguard rule, which we'll talk about. But they tend to be special, so you still have to fill up your core with enough points that you can still go after those. So
yeah.
So I think these are solid changes. Let's say without making it so core units are just 3 points.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, now they can hopefully stand up.
Right.
At least have a chance to. No more foes.
No more foes.
Kind of what it's always. Again, it's kind of the same. It just makes it clear that you can do the post-combat pivot or post-combat reform. Right. You have the choice,
we'll get to shortly,
which will be coming up because there is a difference there.
Yes.
And that we run into that with pursuits and overrun.
Yes.
Before you base to base. So this is kind of what it was before. You can't pursue somebody if he breaks. If you're still engaged with somebody else who did not break,
right?
That doesn't change. If you don't want to pursue somebody that pursues, you can make a leadership test to not pursue. You pass that, and then, like we mentioned before, you have the choice of a post-combat pivot or a post-combat reform.
Right.
So, with the post-combat pivot now, I'll let you go ahead on that one.
Yeah, with post-combat pivot, you can turn your unit wherever you want from the center. However, you have to maintain your formation.
Right.
With a post-combat reform, you can change your ranks and files and change in whatever direction, which is the old reform.
Correct.
But the key thing here is, if you choose to do this, you cannot, it's in the blue here, you cannot declare charges in your following player turn.
Right.
Now, a lot of people saw this change when it was first published and thought they had totally changed it, but they really haven't. They just stopped
I was one of those.
Yeah, the big reform thing and positioning. So you can still get the move, but I think it probably helps with some of possible gaminess on
Well, I've seen a lot of times where people do it and they'll reform into a big conga line.
Right.
And therefore be able to claim objectives or something like that.
Right.
And that kind of knocks that out, because if you've done that, you cannot claim an objective.
Exactly.
And you can't charge.
Exactly.
But,
or you'd see people that they were fighting in one way, and then they'd win, and they'd turn and just change. They change into from horde into bus because who they were going to be fighting the next time.
Correct.
And then charge in and just get or vice versa, to get the extra attack.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't. I mean, I guess we'll come to it later. But the other thing that's not here is later on when we talk about war machines, you'll see that when you're fighting a war machine, you do not get the benefit of the combat reform with the war machine.
Right.
Which, stops you from smashing one and using it as using it to help you move.
Yes.
Overrun, it's kind of what it was before. You crush something in the first round of combat, you wipe it out. You have the choice of staying where you are and reforming, or overrunning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're talking about the distance, because that's the other way you could play the game. Is I'm in horde now, since everything's from the middle.
Right.
You can change from the middle.
Oh, correct. That's a good point.
All of a sudden,
it makes a big difference. You can actually get further away,
or get closer.
Closer. Yes, it's a good point. Flee and pursue.
It's basically the same.
Right.
You roll 2d6 unless you have a special roll, which we'll talk about later. And if equal or higher, you kill the unit automatically that you're chasing after.
This changed a little bit on the flee distance and fleeing units. If there's a tie concerning which unit has the most full ranks to determine who you're fleeing from, the players whose units are not fleeing chooses which direction you go, which one you flee from.
So there's no, because people would do different things here. Sometimes they'd say,
sometimes it would be rolling it off.
Or they'd say, oh no, you split the difference.
Correct.
So yeah.
Yeah, again, it's clarified, and it gives a bonus to the guy who won, which also I kind of like as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, the fleeing is from center of the unit to center of the unit.
Right.
So that can lead to some really odd flees, if you know.
It can, but this is a good clarification, because remember in 8th they had it one way, and then they did that fact change.
Correct. That completely said something different.
Right, and I think it was what, center.
Yeah, well, no, it was. If you fled from a combat, you fled directly away.
Right.
And then directly away is center to center. Well,
yes.
No, not quite, but anyway. The fact did kind of mess that up.
Yeah.
Flee and pursuing, after you rotate, chase them,
It's all pretty much the same stuff.
Yeah, as you can see, no blue in there, so it's kind of...
And if you pursue them off the table, they're dead. And you...
Pursuing off the table, where's the fleeing off the table part of this? Yes, here we go. She was moving this way off the good table, go back on, blah, blah, blah. Okay. There was somewhere in here, fleeing off the table, you're considered destroyed at the point you go off the table.
Right. Causing
a panic check with anything within
yes,
6 of that.
Yes.
So, just something else to kind of
right.
work on. I don't see that immediately, but I know it's in there, right? Of course, some diagrams on fleeing again.
Fleeing and direction from the units and etc.
Right.
And then how the pursuit's done, how units can block, etc.
Yeah, and they can get fairly complicated in diagrams. If you look all the way down to like D.
Yeah.
But again, it's a good job with what they've done.
Yep.
Right. Where are we? Combat reform. What do we got there?
So this, what we said before, you had a choice. You can do a combat pivot or a combat reform.
On the post-combat. This is the combat, though, right?
Right. Oh, sorry. This is when you're in combat, correct?
Yeah. Neither.
Yes.
The other side, one side loses or draws or whatever, but you don't break.
You decide you want to add. You want to add models into the combat. Like in 8th, you still cannot have less. You cannot reform. You can reform your unit if you win automatically, but you can't never take models out of combat. You can add models, but you can never take models out of combat. And then
Correct.
the
Number of models.
Number of models, yes. Then the loser has kind of the same option. They have to take a check. They have to take a check to do it, but same thing. So that makes it kind of clean. One of the other things in 8th, there was always this point of contention. I think most people said when two characters were in combat, or in contact, not in combat.
Correct.
That the final interpretation was, oh no, they couldn't move at all because they were touching one another.
Correct.
And now, all it says now is that if you were in base contact with an enemy, you must stay in base contact.
Even though it's different enemy models.
Even though it's different enemy models.
Correct.
So you can shift, so it doesn't cause weird things with stopping you from changing formations or anything else.
Right. Locking a character into a spot.
And I think it's really important for when you have a different size base character,
Correct.
Guys overlap, and before you could say, oh no, you can't reform because he can't be in the middle of your unit.
Right.
So now you just push everybody down.
Yeah, and they also clarified here if both players want to perform combat reforms, combat reforms, the active player chooses who goes first.
Right. Which is different.
Right. So you can decide, make him reform first. So you can keep your character in contact with his character if that's what you're looking for.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Combat reforms.
I think that brings us to the end
of
this
bring us to the next one, isn't it?
Section. Yep. So
as far as combat goes, the major changes really are what the rank and file can hit rank and file.
I think that's probably the big change. I mean, once again, there's nothing huge here. It's basically 8th edition, but we have little modifier changes with flanks and rears, and the disrupted, I think, is a big change.
No longer canceling ranks. Yes.
But getting rid of steadfast. I mean,
Correct.
being able to live steadfast is a big deal, especially with so few stubborn units in the game now.
Right.
You have bodyguard units, which we'll talk about, but they're not. They're always special or rare. So but yeah, that's really I think those are the main things, and differentiating between the combat pivot and the post-combat pivot and post-combat reform. So I think little minor changes.
Right.
But they have a good impact on the game. They have a definite impact on the game, but it's all positive stuff.
All seems to be positive.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing, and again, just a lot of clarifications,
Yes.
better wording things,
Yep.
so it makes more sense, less debate over how something works.
Yep.
So
Yeah, much different from 3rd edition, which was the first edition I played.
things have changed a bit
Oh,
since then.
absolutely, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Overall, another good phase. Nothing really wacky in here.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, that's going to be it for combat.
That wraps up combat, and until the next
Yeah, talk to you later.
section.